Hi guys, welcome to the IGCSE ICT Seminar. So in this seminar, I'll be discussing on the paper 1 and paper 2. So we're basically going to look into what is in paper 1 and what is in paper 2, what you should be expecting, how are you going to be answering it, and what are the main tips that you should be aware of to ensure that you score really good marks for both these papers. Alright, so let's start with the IGCSE paper 1. So what are we actually going to look into this paper? Okay, so first and foremost, we are basically going to look into the structure of the IGCSE ICT paper 1. Okay, the structure is basically we're going to look into the variants, the syllabus focus, like what are you supposed to focus on, what is the allocated time, how much you should spend on it, what is the advised time you should spend on it, and what you should do with the remaining time if there is, and then what are the allocated marks and the weights for the paper. Okay, next we'll be looking into the types of questions. Okay, what are the possible types of questions you will encounter? Okay, how are you gonna answer it? Okay, how are you gonna know how much to give, how much of answers to give for that question? Okay, and then we'll be looking into the common words and their implications, which means, for example, right, there are certain questions that would say describe, or they would say define, or they would explain like explain, or this design. So those are basically the common words. So we are going to see how are we going to imply and use it well, and then finally we'll be looking into the assessment distribution. So moving forward, let's look into the structure of the IGCSE ICT paper 1. Alright, so these are the things that we're going to look into. Okay, first and foremost, your IGCSE ICT theory paper, which is the paper 1, consists of 3 variants, which is variant 1.1, variant 1.2, and variant 1.3. Okay, so these variants are all offered in different region zones at different dates. It's rare that all these variants come up in the same date or same time. Okay, however, you don't have to worry. Okay, if you want to do revision on variant 1.2, you can, because variant 1.1, variant 1.2, and variant 1.3, they all have these similar questions, and mostly the topics are basically the same, just like minor differences in terms of scenario they expose you to or examples given. Other than that, the concept is the same. Okay, how you're going to answer it, it's the same. The type of questions are all similar. Okay, so let me show you how to identify what variant is the paper given to you. Alright, so this is a paper 1, theory paper for the IGCSE ICT paper. Okay, so this is a past year paper which was on March 2017. Okay, so if you notice in this paper, right, you can see there is basically this number here. They have the /12 at the back. Okay, this /12 is basically your variant number. Okay, so this is how you identify what variant is the paper given to you. Okay, so in the front page of it, it will already show what is the session, what is the session of the paper, what is the variant, okay, time allocated, okay, and the instructions that you have to read before you start the paper. Okay, so moving on. Okay, so from here you can see that this is variant 1.2. Okay, and then this is basically May-June 2019 paper. Okay, here you can see that it is variant 1.1. Okay, so this is how you identify what variant is your paper. So as I've stated previously, they have the instructions, the time allocated, the session, and also you just have to fill in your name, center number, and candidate number in the front page, as well as read the instructions, and you're not allowed to answer the question until it says so. Okay, so now that we look into how to identify what variant is the paper, okay, next we are going to look into the syllabus focus. Alright, so this syllabus, right, it focuses on section 1 to section 21, okay, which includes your practical knowledge as well. Okay, just because it's paper 1 doesn't mean that you don't attempt or you won't be seeing practical questions like Excel sheets or presentation skills. Okay, these will all be in your paper as well. Just they will ask you to like answer based on the question given. Okay, so in this paper 1, all the questions are compulsory to be answered. Okay, so for example, right, let me show you the example of practical questions that you will be attempting in this paper 1. Alright, so this was the February-March paper, the variant 1-2 that just now I've shown you. Okay, so in this one, right, you can see this question 12. Okay, you have to design a multimedia presentation for training session. So this is basically, they are evaluating your skills on creating a presentation slide. Okay, these are the information given and you have to design based on your knowledge that you have learned in your IGCSE ICT syllabus. Okay, aside from that, you also have Excel questions. Can you see here they provided an Excel spreadsheet below. Okay, and then they are asking you to write down the formula. Can you see here? Write down a formula you would use in cell K4 which makes use of the label in row 3 where appropriate to add up the marks of the theory. So they'll basically ask you to write up the formula for that. Okay, so don't think that just because it's a theory paper they only will measure all your theory knowledge like hardware, software, input, output devices, memory, storage. Okay, they will also measure and evaluate your practical skills as well. How will you apply the formula? How are you going to use the formula in certain conditions? Okay, for presentation skills, how are you going to design it? Okay, how are you going to align a document? So they will ask you to put your skills in forms of word when you're answering or explaining in your theory paper. So please don't take the syllabus focus lightly. Okay, you have to focus from section 1 until section 21. Ace all the chapters, which means gain as much as knowledge as you can in all chapters. Okay, and also don't think that just because it's a theory paper they will not measure your practical skills. Okay, that's a wrong assumption to make here. Okay, moving on, let's look into the allocated time. Okay, so the allocated time for this paper is basically 2 hours. Okay, just because they say that it's 2 hours doesn't mean you have to use the complete 2 hours just on answering questions. Try your best to complete the paper within 1 hour and 30 minutes. So the remaining 30 minutes you can use it to check your answers. Okay, to double confirm your answers, to check whether you miss any questions, to check if your answers are answered according to the requirement of the question. Okay, to check if the answers you provided is fulfilling the marks allocated for the question. Okay, so try your best to complete the paper as fast as you can. But just because that it's fast as you can doesn't mean you have to like rush yourself. Okay, not answer well. Okay, answer well and also as fast as you can, which means maybe around 1 hour 30 minutes is the best. Okay, so the remaining 30 minutes allocate that time to check your answers, to go through your paper to see if you have missed anything or you have answered anything wrong. Alright, moving on. Okay, let's see. Next we are going to look into the allocated marks and weight for the paper 1. Okay, so basically this paper consists of 100 marks. Okay, it constitute 4% of the overall ICT exam. Okay, the mark for each questions are basically indicated at the end of the question or part of the question. Okay, the number of marks is basically indicated how many valid points you are supposed to give in. For example, if the question indicates there's 3 marks allocated for the question, so you have to make sure that you provide 3 valid points. Okay, it can be either points and explanation or all 3 are points. Okay, you have to answer according to the question. Okay, if you see the third point, right, the marks for each questions are indicated at the end of the question or part of the question. Okay, what do I mean by that? Let me show that to you. Okay, so if you see this question 5 here, okay, describe how security can be improved in a Wi-Fi network. So they basically allocated 2 marks here. This is what I meant by the marks is shown at the edge of the question. Okay, so now that we know that it's 2 marks, so you should be aware that you have to give points which satisfy the 2 marks, which means 2 points. Okay, so since this question is allocating 2 marks, right? Okay, but this question actually have a wide range of answer. Okay, example, it can be use wireless security software. enable user management, disable remote administration to the router, enable WPA encryption, okay, secure the wireless router. So there's like a huge range of answers, but since it's only 2 marks, you just have to give 2 points from that huge range. So for example, I'm just going to go with enable user management and also secure the wireless router or the network with a strong password. So since there's 2 points, okay, and if the 2 points are correct, then you will obtain the full 2 marks for the question. Alright. So that is basically the brief explanation on allocated marks and weight. If you calculate the total marks for every question, it will somehow sum up to 100 marks. Okay. However, this paper only constitutes 4% of the overall ICT exam. Okay. Moving on. Okay, we are going to look into the types of questions. Okay, the first type of question that we are going to look into is circle the correct answer. Okay, if you can see the example below, right, here they have stated circle 2 items which are used at the output devices. Also, if you look at the towards the right edge, you can see there's a 2 in a bracket. Okay, which means that it's 2 marks. So 2 marks means there should be 2 points. 2 points means 2 answers. So this is where you circle 2 answers, which is laser printer and multimedia projector. Okay, let me show you example of a past year paper. Okay, so if you see this paper, right, the June 2019 paper, question 3, circle 2 items which are used as internal hardware devices. Okay, and they showed here that it's 2 marks. Okay, so if it's 2 marks, it's obvious that it's going to give you 2 points. So the possible 2 points are basically the processor and the sound card. Okay, so these two basically say these two is basically the 2 points which is valid for these questions. Therefore, you will obtain both marks. So in case if the question states 3 marks at the edge, or they specify circle 3 items, then you have to circle 3 items. Okay, so basically the answer here depends on the question and the marks allocated for that question as well. Alright, moving on. Okay, the next type of question that we are going to look into here is tick the correct answer. So for this one, right, okay, it's not necessarily true or false only. Okay, it can be different type as well. Maybe they might give the name, they will give you the description, and they will ask you to tick according to the description and name that matches. Okay, so same, the marks and the question will indicate what are the points allocated or how much you must answer for it, how many times you must tick. Okay, let me show you an example. Alright, so this is basically the another example of questions which refers to ticking the correct answer. So if you see the question 4 here, they ask you to tick whether the following examples refer to dot matrix, laser or 3D printers. Okay, you can look at the edge here, it says 4 marks. Okay, so if it's 4 marks, which means we have to have 4 answers, correct? Let's look at the first point. The printer uses continuous stationary. So if you have read your notes on the types of printer and the description on it, you would have known that the first one is basically dot matrix. Okay, the second one, the printer uses toner. Okay, should be laser. The third one, the printer is more suitable for a quiet environment, should be laser as well. The printer produces solid objects. Okay, which means solid objects, which means something that you can touch or see. Okay, so it is 3D. Okay, so it's basically there is 4 ticks here. These 4 ticks indicates as 4 marks. Okay, sometimes it's not only tick, they'll ask you to cross and tick as well. It's depending on the question again. Alright, moving on. Aside from tick the correct answer, next we are going to look into draw lines to connect to the relevant items, which means it's the basic matching. Okay, so you match the left to the right. Okay, so the same thing, although it's not clear down there, it's actually 4 marks. So 4 marks means we are basically matching 4 left to the 4 right. Okay, so it can come, this question is the format is the same. Okay, but the question can come up of different types. Okay, different chapters. Alright, so let me show you an example of the question. Alright, so basically this is the May-June 2013 paper. If you see question 6, right, it says draw 4 lines to match each storage medium to the most appropriate use in the list. So they have indicated this is 4 marks. Okay, so we know that all 4 must be matched in order to obtain these 4 marks. Okay, so let's look into this. Alright, so when we match, right, okay, fix hard disk. Okay, so the use is obviously to store operating system. Okay, then we have DVD-ROM. Okay, yes, DVD-ROM is to publish distributing encyclopedias. Okay, pen drive, we normally use it to transfer files, and meanwhile magnetic tape is to batch process application. If at all you got all 4 correct, then you'll obtain 4 marks. Okay, for example, maybe you got this one wrong. Okay, so you'll only get 3 marks. Okay, if you only got 2 correct and 2 wrongs, example, the fixed hard disk and pen drive you got wrong, and DVD and magnetic tape you got correct, so you only will obtain 2 marks out of 4 marks. Okay, so this is how it's normally marked. So please make sure that you focus on all the syllabus, which means from section 1 to section 21. Get all the ideas, get all the concepts right, so that you're able to answer and get the maximum marks as possible. Alright, moving on, let's look into the next type of question. Okay, this one. Okay, this one is to basically complete the sentences. Okay, they will give you a sentence and then you have to fill in the words to complete it. Okay, at the end of the sentence, the marks for the question will be allocated, so you have to answer accordingly. Okay, let's look into the example questions. Alright, so let's look at this paper. Okay, this is basically the February-March 2017 paper. Okay, so if you look at this, right, this is the similar one as I've been explaining previously, which is to complete the sentence. Okay, complete the following sentences using the items from the list below. Okay, here if you notice, right, there's only 4 questions which you need to complete. So you're only going to use 4 items from these 8 items, and you can see since it's written here 1 mark each, we know that each of the question only holds 1 point. Okay, so let's see how to solve this. The first one, a device that reads black and white lines on a product is called. Okay, first thing, you have to look at ICT as a daily application. If you know how to apply them, then it's easy to answer questions like this. As you can see, a device that reads black and white lines. If you go to supermarket, what will read the black and white lines on a product? It's basically the barcode reader, right? So the answer for A is going to be a barcode reader. Okay, second thing, a device that inputs the sound made by a human voice is called. So normally in your phone, right, when you speak in your phone, what is the hardware which basically accepts the input of your sound or voice? Okay, it's basically a microphone, right? So that is clearly a microphone. A device which is used to read the data from the bottom of a bank check is called. Okay, this one is basically a magnetic ink character reader. Okay, and finally an input device used to input the biometric details of eye is called. The keyword here is eye. Eye is basically a retina scanner. Alright, so this is basically an example question of completing the sentences. Okay, moving on, let's go back to the slides and see what are the other questions that you might encounter. Alright, the next type of question that you will be encountering is basically naming or giving. Okay, so what is this actually? Okay, this is basically to recall the knowledge you have gained from the ICT syllabus. Okay, they will either ask you to list down or provide the name of items, okay, based on the scenario. So for example, if in this diagram you can say that they are asking you to name 2 items of hardware which would enable the computer to be connected to a local area network. So it's basically switch and a hub. Okay, this is an example of name or give. Okay, let's look into the question paper to find for any other examples. Okay, so here we basically have the May-June 2013 paper. Okay, so look at question 1. Name the output devices A, B, C, D using the words from the list. So basically here they already give you the list and here they gave you the diagram. So what they are asking you to do is to just name the A, B, C and D. So what is A? Okay, so what is B, what is C and what is D? If you see here, it's basically 4 marks. So 4 marks means it's basically 4 points. So you have to be aware that this question is basically covering a 4-mark question. So all your answers should be there in order for you to obtain 4 marks, provided that your answer given is correct. Okay, so next let's look into the another type of question that you will be encountering. Alright, the next type of question that you will be encountering is describe. Okay, describing is basically where you learn how to explain the points, the facts based on the marks given. Okay, so here if you see it's 3 marks, so that means you must describe 3 points, and since they already number it 1, 2 and 3, you have to actually list down or describe 3 points based on the question. Okay, let's look at an example question from the past year paper. Okay, so let's look at this question. Okay, it's the same describe. Okay, just different scenario. Describe batch processing of data using the processing of bank checks as an example. Okay, here given 4 marks, so you must have minimum 4 points. Okay, feel free to give 5 points just to make how to say, secure yourself the maximum points you can. Okay, so based on this question you have to explain, you have to describe the process. Okay, so which means the process means you must go like step by step on how the bank checks are basically processed. So for example, first the data or the checks are collected together during the course of the day, that is already 2 marks, where the checks are collected and then during the course of the day, that is 2 points, 2 marks. Okay, then checks are then processed all at once, 3rd point. Checks are processed overnight, 4th point. Okay, bank accounts updated following morning. Okay, 5th point. Can you see, I gave extra 1 more point just to make myself feel safe for my, so that I feel that I'm confident to obtain maximum marks. Alright, okay, so now that you know how to explain for describe, let's go back to the slides and see what's the next type of question. Alright, next we'll be looking into the explain type of questions. Okay, explain is also the same. You have to explain as detailed as you can based on the marks allocated. If they give you 3 marks, then you explain for 3 marks, which means 3 points. Okay, try giving example, try giving explanation and definition. Alright, so let's look into an example from the past year paper. Okay, so if you see here, right, question 12, they are basically discussing about internet in intranet. Okay, so 12a is asking you what is meant by internet and 12b is asking you what is meant by intranet, and both are 3 marks. So if 3 marks, you have to give a minimum of 3 points. Okay, so maybe for 12a, right, what is internet? First you give what is it actually. Okay, and internet is basically public network which is not policed. Okay, it is also an international network, that is the 2nd point. Okay, it's also a wide area network, 3rd point. So I gave 3 points for internet, which means I get at least 3 marks. Okay, so to make yourself feel safer, as I said previously, give the 4th point. Okay, maybe you can say that it's a place where you can get public information. Okay, so the same thing for intranet. Okay, intranet, you can say that it's a private network. Okay, it is a local area network, it is normally policed. Okay, so you can give points. If it's 3 marks, try giving 4 points just to secure another option as a safe answer. Okay, so let's go back to the slides to see what are the questions that you might also attempt. Alright, so the next type of question that you'll be seeing is compare and contrast. What is compare and contrast? Compare and contrast, we're basically talking about the similarities and differences of 2 given conditions. So if this question, they're basically asking you to give similarity and differences of magnetic tapes and removable magnetic disc. Okay, so let's look into an example question from the past year paper. Okay, so this is basically the February-March 2019 paper. Okay, variant 1-2. Okay, let's just go through and see if we can find any compare and contrast. Okay, so we have explain, describe. Okay, complete the sentences. Okay, here we have one. Okay, so an electric bus system is being considered for New Delhi. Passengers will use smart cards to travel on the bus. They have to add money to their smart card before they can travel. Compare and contrast the use of smart cards rather than using cash to pay for a journey. So basically you must give the similarities and differences of smart cards and cash. Okay, so let's look into the similarities. Okay, so basically smart cards and cash both are used for transactions. Okay, and both are portable and both allow payment at point of use. Okay, so here they listed 6 marks, so I would suggest that maybe you can give 3 similarities and 3 differences, or you can also give 2 similarities and 4 differences. It's your choice. Okay, so maybe the differences you can say that it's for smart cards is a faster process compared to cash. Okay, and someone needs to check correct payment made with cash or card. Okay, but card is automatically checked. Okay, and sometimes you may not have enough money on the card and you may not know this, so sometimes having cash is safer. So you can give the differences as much as you can until you feel that you're confident. Okay, so let's look at what are the questions that we can actually attempt. Alright, so the next type of question that you might encounter is basically, okay, this one. Okay, which means discuss. Okay, discuss is basically where you elaborate your points. Okay, you provide the maximum information that you can based on the marks allocated. So from here we can see that they're asking you to discuss the advantage and disadvantages. So as I said previously, you can give the advantages or disadvantages depending on how much you know. If you know more of advantages, you give more of advantages. If you know more of disadvantages, you give more of disadvantages compared to advantages, but provided that you have both advantages and both disadvantages in your answer. Okay, so let's look at an example question. Okay, so in this paper you can basically see that the question asks you to discuss the benefits and drawbacks of using other devices that connect to the internet in the home. Okay, so let's look into the marks. Marks allocated here is 8 marks. So we can't actually take it lightly. So 8 marks means either you discuss 4 benefits, 4 drawbacks, 3 benefits, 5 drawbacks, or 5 drawbacks and 3 benefits. Okay, or as long as the benefits and drawbacks, when you add it up, it gives you a total of 8. Okay, 8 points in total. You can answer more than 8 points, maybe like 9 or 10 points to feel like secure. Okay, so maybe if answering 10 points give you the confidence that you will obtain full marks, then go ahead, but always keep track of your time. Okay, don't spend too much of time on questions. Okay, if you have very little time but you have already answered like 8 points, then go on to the next question. So once at the end, if you have more time, you can return back and add your points. Okay, moving on, let's look into the next type of questions. Okay, so other type of questions that you might actually see: give reasons. Okay, you might see list, you might see identify, evaluate, design. Okay, so okay, so let's look into one of the paper and let's go through what are the questions that you might see. Alright, so let's briefly go into this paper 1. Okay, variant 1 2 February March 2017, where the marks allocated is 2 hours. Okay, so let's go into, okay, the first thing is basically completing the sentence using the items, which we have already looked into this question. Okay, we also have looked into the tick. Okay, you just have to tick based on internal or backing storage. Okay, then we also have true and false. Okay, if you notice here, okay, this 2 is 2 marks. Okay, although it's 2 marks, you still have to answer all the questions. You have to identify whether it's true or false, true or false, true or false, true or false to obtain the 2 marks. Okay, next is basically you must identify. This is identifying the field name. Okay, so these are the data types. You have to identify the field name which is suitable for the below data type. Here we can here is basically describe. Okay, another type of question that we will actually encounter. Okay, and then here is basically explain. Okay, so explain here is basically 3 marks. So 3 marks means you have to explain as brief as you can, 3 points to obtain all the 3 marks. Okay, here is describe. Describe means you have to also explain. Okay, you have to give 4 description, because they say here is 4 marks. And then we have explain again. Describe, we also have describe. Okay, name, this is listing. Okay, this is listing type of question. You have to list 4 pieces of information. Okay, so by listing all these 4, you will obtain 4 marks. Okay, here is describe. Okay, here we are basically looking into design, another type of question. So you have to design your own slide for the presentation based on the question given. Okay, here is name 3 outputs, which means listing as well. Okay, let's see, explain. Here is giving 2 advantages, 2 disadvantages. This is a type of listing question as well. Explain. Okay, discuss, the one that we went through just now. Okay, and that is all. Okay, so basically the final question usually carries the most mark, so they always advise you to spend more time on the final question. Alright, so let's go back to the slides. Okay, so next, okay, we are going to look into the comment lines and their implications. How are we going to answer them? Okay, so the first one is explain. I've shown you many explain questions just now from the past year paper, correct? Okay, so explain is basically you're explaining an idea or a situation to someone. You're making the situation clear to someone by describing it in more detail. Okay, so when you're describing it in more detail, you're basically showing facts, explaining facts. Okay, so in this situation, you as a student, you must translate, comprehend and interpret the information based on your prior learning from section 1 to section 21. Okay, so you basically have to explain in depth based on the facts and the knowledge you are aware of. Okay, let's look into one of the question and attempt that question. Alright, let's look into this question. Explain the strategies that you could use to protect yourself and your computer while using email. Okay, so let's see the marks. The marks is 6. Okay, so what you can do is, since it's explained right here, okay, you can give 3 points and 3 explanation, which means for each point you provide an explanation. So for example, okay, my first point is going to be never open or download attachment or links from people you don't know. Okay, as they may contain virus or allow others to know the email address is live. Okay, so the part that I say never open or download the attachment or links from people you don't know is the point, and the part that I say as they may contain viruses and allows others to know the email address is live is the explanation for my point. Okay, my second point, never open emails from unknown sources, and my explanation for that point, as they may contain viruses. Okay, that is already 4 marks. Okay, my third point, scan all emails using an up-to-date antivirus. Okay, my third point, as new viruses are always being created. My third explanation. So I have 3 points, 3 explanation. With these 3 points and 3 explanation, I can obtain a maximum of 6 marks. But to be safe, if you want to be safe, you can provide another point and another explanation. Example, keep the number of contacts to a minimum. Okay, point number 4. As some viruses send emails to all names in your contact list. Okay, explanation number 4. Okay, can you see? So I'm giving an additional point and explanation to secure my marks, just in case if any of my points are wrong. Alright, let's look into the next type of comment. Okay, the next type of comment is basically describe. Okay, when you are answering question based on describe, you have to give a detailed account of something. Okay, you need to describe in terms of their appearance, how they function, what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages to obtain the maximum marks. Okay, try to use the who, what, how and where to explain in detail, as that can help you elaborate more. Okay, so to answer questions dealing with describing, okay, you have to obtain maximum marks by ensuring that your answers are basically logic and it's basically a good form of an idea. Okay, so it has to lead from one idea to another idea so that you can keep on writing the points. Okay, let's look into an example question. Okay, take a good look at this question. It's from the similar question. It's regarding the email that we did just now on the explain. So now we are going to look into the describe. Okay, describe ways of protecting your personal data when using the internet. Okay, here they have said that it's 5 marks, so we have to give 5 points. Okay, so for example, I can say that to protect your personal data from when using the internet, first you need to use strong passwords. Okay, instead of using strong password, you must also regularly change your passwords. That is my second point. Okay, aside from that, not replying to email where personal data is asked for is also a way to protect your personal data when using an internet. Okay, unless you are sure of the reception. Okay, so that is like I'm already stating 2 points there, which is not replying to email where personal data is asked for. Okay, unless you are sure of reception is the second point. Okay, and then you can also say like setting social media to private as the fifth point, and to secure. Okay, to feel confident with your answer in case any one of it is wrong, you can give two more, like use an alias on online gaming, and also use different password for different emails or different logins. Okay, or different social media, so that people are not aware that in case they hack one of your profile, okay, and they might use the same password for your another profile. Okay, so if at all that profile also have the same password, then they can hack it. So it's better that you use two different passwords. Okay, so by explaining in detail, you can obtain maximum marks. Alright, so let's go into the next type of command line. Okay, the next type of command line is basically design. Okay, design is basically aimed at demonstrating your creativity. Okay, basically you can design an input capture screen, design an output form. Okay, you can design a network, or even answer questions, which means you explain your practical work. Okay, so based on the previous question we looked into is basically designing a slide. Alright, let's look back into that question. Alright, so in this question you are asked to design a master slide. Okay, and the marks is basically 5 marks. Okay, so since it's 5 marks, you must make sure that you actually meet all these 5 requirements here. Okay, since it's 5 marks, you have to meet all these 5 requirements here. Alright, so when you meet all these 5 requirements, okay, you will obtain the maximum 5 marks. Okay, so like I said before, just because it's a theory paper doesn't mean that they don't measure your practical skills. They will ask you to apply your practical skills in the theory paper as well. So make sure that your practical skills is very well practiced, so that you can also apply it in your theory paper. Alright, so moving on, let's look into the next type of command line. Okay, so the next type of command words, okay, that you'll be looking into is the discuss. Okay, this is the question which holds the most number of marks for a single question. Okay, it's normally the last question, and it's also it holds a since it holds a huge amount of mark, you have to spend more time in this question. Okay, things that you need to consider when you're answering questions involved with discuss. Okay, you need to address both sides of the discussion, you need to justify the issues raised, and always give reasons. Okay, give reasons to your discussion. Okay, and make sure that your conclusion for the discussion is reasonable. Okay, when you're giving your answers, make sure your answers are relevant. Okay, they should be clear, organized, and presented in structured and coherent. Okay, the arrangement of your answers should be logical and consistent format, and don't make it like it's everywhere, like it's very messy and unorganized. Okay, this will make the examiner, okay, they will feel confused when they are reading your answer. If they are confused when they're reading your answer, they won't be able to actually give you proper marks, because they don't know which are the points and which are the explanation if you are just messing it everywhere. Okay, and sometimes even if they're able to mark it, they might miss it, they might mislook it, or they might oversee it. Okay, so make sure that you're structured for this discuss question, it is basically very structured, arranged neatly, and organized. Okay, let's look into how to answer example question. Alright, so just like I've stated before, okay, the discuss usually comes at the end of the paper, the last question. Okay, same, this is basically the last page. Okay, so here basically they're asking you to discuss the benefits and drawbacks of using other devices that connect to the internet in the home. Okay, so like I said previously, if your benefits is stronger, you answer more benefits. If your drawbacks are stronger, answer more of your drawbacks. So let's look into the marks, 8 marks. So we have to come up with 8 solid points. Okay, so sometimes, right, you students, okay, you guys tend to think that the answers for the paper is always following answer scheme. Actually, questions like discuss, describe, explain, okay, they accept answers which are logical, okay, not necessarily only the ones that in the marking scheme. Okay, so for this type of question, try to put yourself in the situation. Okay, try to put yourself in the situation of in the condition. Okay, so example for this question, they're asking you to explain the benefits and drawbacks of using devices that connect to the internet in the home. Okay, imagine yourself, okay, you're using devices that are connected to the internet in your house. Okay, while you're using, obviously we are all in the current generation, we are all using internet almost in our daily life. Okay, so try to think what are the benefits and the drawbacks that you're facing at home. And now that we have gone through the pandemic, we are all basically stuck at home. Since we are stuck at home, obviously we are going to use the internet at home, correct? So you by now should have known what are the benefits and drawbacks of it. For example, the smartphones or smart technology devices can be used to turn on devices remotely. Okay, for example, if you're coming home, you can turn on cookers. You can come home to a warm house by turning on central heating. Okay, so I gave 3 points there. That's already 3 marks. Okay, and then I can give another 2 more marks for benefits. Okay, so I can say that smart fridges can analyze food taken out of fridge, so you can get a healthy diet, and also you can reorder stock automatically. Okay, so since they said here other devices, they are not specifically saying smartphones and computers, so you cannot actually mention smartphone and computers again. You have to use other devices. That's what I'm using, like smart technologies, smart fridges, like that. Okay, so next I'm going to look into the drawbacks of smart technology. Okay, so what we can say, if you're using smart technology, there's always a hole in using technology, correct? Example, that your personal data can easily be hacked through the internet, which are connected to the devices, because your personal data can be easily found when the Wi-Fi key is easily found. Okay, that is already 3 marks. Okay, and also sometimes the new technology is expensive. Can you see how easy and logic the answer is? New technology is expensive, so that is already giving you marks. And then you can say that you are relying on the internet connection too much. Okay, what if there is no internet one day? How are you going to function everything? So that is also a logic answer, correct? So always remember, at the end of the day, your answer just have to be logic, relevant, and consistent. That is all that matters. Put yourself in the situation when you answer the question, so that you can know how logical is the question. If you are able to apply the situation, that means the answer is obviously logical, because you have been in that situation, you have gone through, you know how to actually solve it. So it's a living example. Okay, so always remember, when you go into discuss, describe, explain questions, put yourself in the situation. Alright, okay, so now let's go back to the slides. Okay, so we have finally come to the end part of the paper 1, okay, where we look into the assessment distribution. Okay, in the assessment distribution, okay, your paper is evaluating 3 components: AO1, AO2, AO3. Okay, AO1 is where the students will be asked questions that challenges them to recall, select, and communicate knowledge and understanding of ICT. Okay, example is where you know, the part where you list down, you identify, you circle. Okay, that is where you're basically recalling the knowledge that you have learned earlier and answering the question. AO2 is basically where you're required to apply the knowledge, understand, and the skills produced in ICT based solution. Okay, for example, the practical questions, the spreadsheet, the presentation slides. Okay, this is where you're basically applying the skills that you have learned in your practical for ICT. Okay, so when you apply this, you are basically evaluating your component AO2. Okay, and AO3 is where you are basically analyzing, evaluating, and making good reasons and judgments and providing a proper conclusion. Okay, this is where you are evaluating your ability to provide reasonable justification. Okay, for example, the questions that you answered based on discuss, describe, explain, evaluate, okay, those are all analyzing your skills to evaluate and making judgments, as well as providing a proper conclusion to that questions. Okay, so if you see the distribution for each component, for part 1, right, the AO1, okay, you're basically covering 70%, AO2 is 15 and AO3 is 15. Okay, that's why most of the AO1 are basically circle, match, identify, fill in, complete the sentences. Okay, those are all the examples of AO1. Okay, AO2, although it's 15%, it carries a huge mark for explain, discuss, sorry, that was AO3. For AO2, you're basically using like the Excel sheet, the designing. Okay, although it's 15 marks, 15%, the marks carried for those questions are like 4 marks, 3 marks, 2 marks. Okay, and AO3 is the same, it's 15%, but the marks carrying for that component is like around 8 marks, 6 marks, 5 marks, 4 marks. Okay, so when you answer these components, you have to be very careful and come back to the main part. Okay, always get yourself occupied, get your knowledge on the theory paper well. Okay, cover up section 1 to section 21, because as I said previously, your paper 1, your theory paper is going to cover your practical, your judgment, and your ability to recall your knowledge that you've gained during your ICT lessons. So don't take paper 1 lightly, because it carries the most percentage and it's the most easiest paper if you actually read your notes and understand the ICT syllabus well. Okay, just because you're studying ICT doesn't mean that you only have to focus on the practical. You have to have the basic knowledge of how to actually understand and apply it in situations. So this is where the theory paper comes in, actually ensuring you to apply it in situations given in the questions. Alright, so that is about the assessment distribution. So that is the entire paper 1 that I've explained and briefed you. We have looked into the questions. Okay, first we looked into the structures, what are the syllabus focus, variance, allocated time, and also allocated weightage and marks. Okay, after that we looked into every type of questions. We looked into circle, we looked into matching it, and then we looked into evaluating, discussing, designing, and describing, okay, explaining. Those are all the questions that we actually looked through. We also look into how to answer based on the marks given. Okay, we looked into how to allocate time according to the questions, which one to prioritize more and which one to prioritize less. Okay, how to secure proper marks in case you feel like you're not really confident with the points you give. You can give extra points, okay, in case you're not confident. Okay, so that is basically the entire paper 1 about. Okay, so guys, so next we are going to look into the IGCSE ICT Paper 2, which is more on your practical work. Okay, so what are the contents that we are going to look into? First and foremost, we are going to be looking into the structure of the IGCSE ICT Paper 2, and then we are going to look into how are you going to manage your time, what is the time allocated. Next is basically the document production checklist, then the data manipulation checklist, mail merge checklist, and presentation checklist, which is all the common questions that you will face in the paper 2 questions. Alright, so let's start with the IGCSE ICT paper 2 structure. So this paper is basically 2 hours and 30 minutes, and it's made up of at least 4 parts. Okay, document production, okay, data manipulation, mail merge, and presentation. Under data manipulation, they can either ask you reports, label, queries, depending on the question. Okay, although the paper is 2 hours 30 minutes, it's not necessarily that you might use the complete 2 hours 30 minutes on answering the paper. So talking about time management, how are you going to manage these 2 hours 30 minutes? Okay, when you're answering this paper, it's all about speed versus accuracy. Okay, you may do it very fast. Okay, maybe you're a very fast person, you would have completed the paper within 1 hour. Okay, but you must make sure that your answer is accurate as well. Just because you're doing it fast doesn't mean that your answers will be 100% accurate. So make sure that you also have the speed and accuracy achieved in the same time. Okay, so if you do it well, okay, if your answer is correct and you've been doing it without feeling like, like once you start answering the questions, you'll know whether you're doing it right or wrong. Okay, so once you feel that your answer is accurate, you're doing it fast, then that will be a good way, because you have like additional time to check on your work. So in case if it's wrong, okay, you can actually redo it if and only if it's wrong. Okay, so you're advised to spend not more than 30 minutes on each major topic, which is, for example, for presentation, don't spend more than 30 minutes, and then for mail merges also the same, spreadsheet the same. Okay, next thing is don't skip an activity. Try to follow step by step. The moment you skip an activity, you might forget completely about it in your stress of doing the paper. And once you skip an activity, you'll be you'll feel very nervous, anxious in answering the paper. You'll be in constant worry whether you have completed the question or not. So you'll tend to go back to the question and see again and again whether you have completed or not. Okay, next thing, remember to print when you asked to, and don't always wait for the last minute to print. Okay, you might be thinking that you might be afraid to get up and go print. Okay, you might think okay, it's okay, I'll just wait for my friend to print, then I'll go and print together with my friend. Don't do that. Try to print as soon as you can. Okay, remember that you're not restricted from printing. Okay, so you can print as many times as you want. Okay, example, you print the first time, it's wrong, okay, it's okay, you can do again, print again. Nobody is going to restrict you from that. Just don't wait till last minute. Once you wait till last minute, you'll be very rushing, you'll be very stressed, okay, and you'll be very anxious. So you might do things wrong and you might make more mistakes once you're rushing. Okay, and always remember to call for the invigilator for help when it's needed. Okay, don't wait till it's too late. Okay, example, if your computer is not turning on, immediately call them. If your software is not saving, immediately call them. If the printer is not working, immediately call them. Don't wait until last minute and just waiting for them to just come and ask you on their own. Okay, learn to actually ask for help when you actually need it and not wait till last minute. Okay, alright, before we go into the checklist for documentation, mail merge, presentation, and so on, okay, let's look at roughly how the paper actually looks like. Alright, so basically, if you see, this is a past year paper. Okay, it's the February March 2021. Okay, variant 21. Okay, so as I've stated before, the the time allocated for this is 2 hours 30 minutes. Okay, so this is basically a paper 2. The total mark for this paper is 80 marks. Okay, so we are going to go through the paper and see what you can actually find in this paper. Okay, so for paper 2, you will be supplied with source file. Okay, and then you will be asked to prepare evidence document. Okay, so usually your task 1 is always to prepare evidence document. Okay, followed by your task 2, where you start with your actual activity, which is the document activity. Okay, so they'll give you step by steps on what to do. Don't skip any activity, do step by step so that you don't miss anything. Okay, always check whether you have completed the question or not before you proceed with the next one. Okay, so after that, with this task, you'll go on with the task 3, database. Okay, and then we also have, okay, wait, that's down. Okay, task 4, mail merge. Okay, so there's a lot of tasks for you to do. Okay, we have task 5, presentation. So minimum is normally 4. Okay, so at least 4 tasks you'll be given. Okay, and then finally is for you to print your evidence document. Okay, try not to skip any parts. Okay, do step by step, there is no rush. If you can, try to complete it within 1 hour 30 minutes, so that the remaining 1 hour you can check on your paper, and if you got any mistake, you can immediately amend it and make the changes. Okay, at the same time, although I'm asking you to try to do as fast as you can, do not rush, or else you won't get the right answer. Okay, try to maintain the speed and accuracy at all times. Okay, let's go back to the slides to check on the checklist that you must look at every topic. Alright, first and foremost, we are going to look for checklist on the document production, okay, which means related to your document assessment. Okay, always make sure you excel all of this. Okay, the paragraph properties, okay, how to actually edit the paragraph, set the paragraph. Next, your layout, okay, whether you want narrow margin, okay, whether it's column, there's any page orientation, okay, and then know how to insert objects such as pictures, table, graphs, okay, and then the document consistency, the windows orphans, and then you have to know how to create section breaks because it helps with your page numbering, and then house style specification as well as header, footer, file name and everything. Okay, this all plays an important role to create an organized and very good quality of document production. Okay, moving on. Okay, this is the checklist for data manipulation. You have to excel in queries, sorting, the formulas. Okay, the common formulas are normally like count, average, sum if, max or minimum, sometimes VLOOK. Okay, and then your labels have to be correct, whether it's 2 columns or 3 columns. Okay, when you're printing it, you have to print at the correct size according to the correct page width. Okay, see whether they are requesting you to print in 2 different pages or a single pages. Follow the instructions accordingly. Okay, learn how to save the queries or reports in an importable format. Okay, next is basically the checklist for mail merge. Okay, you should learn how to differentiate between source file and master file. You should also know how to insert objects, okay, such as date, merge fields and everything. You should also know how to filter, which means filter a specific data. For example, they ask you to filter with a specific name, so you must be able to do that. You need to be able to merge letters and documents, able to print the merged documents, and also show or hide any merge fields. Okay, these are all the checklist which you have to excel in order to attempt the mail merge smoothly. Okay, this is basically the checklist for presentation. You should know how to create a slide master, prepare a normal presentation, inserting objects from slide master, example like dates, image, logos, okay, bullets. Okay, inserting objects from slide master, example like pictures, videos, audios, links. Okay, inserting presentation notes, and also on evaluation. Okay, so if you would ask me, I would say that this practical paper is actually a bonus paper. Okay, because you can easily score marks if you follow the instructions correctly, accordingly. Okay, all you just have to do is excel your skills, your practical skills. Okay, just know the basic on how to use the spreadsheet, the mail merge, database, presentation, documentation. Okay, so try to follow step by step, try to ace everything which I've already stated in the checklist. With this, I can assure you that you'll be able to answer the paper 2 smoothly and without any doubts or any confusion. Okay, and always come back to the main point of time management. You have to be able to manage your time well in order to provide the best and quality answer to the examiner. Don't do anything last minute. Okay, always remember it's speed versus accuracy. Despite the speed, you also have to give accurate answers, so do it fast and do it accurately. Okay, set a time for yourself. Practice more on your past year papers, practice on your timing, how you can control your timing. Okay, know your weaknesses. After knowing your weaknesses, practice on your weaknesses so that your weaknesses can become your strength. Okay, start looking into which part you're not really that sure. Revise on that part more. For example, if you're not sure how to do a proper presentation slides, then learn more on it, how to design properly, how to insert a background, how to insert objects, how to insert bullets, how to actually adjust the wordings. Okay, how to do the animation. Okay, try exposing yourself to more practices, do more past year papers. Like I've stated before in the first part, okay, just because you're from variant 1.1 doesn't mean you can't do variant 1.2. Same, just because you're from variant 2.1 you can't do 2.2. So try exposing yourself to many questions, different type of questions. Okay, learn everything step by step. Okay, mainly do the activity for paper 2 step by step. So with that is all I have for today's seminar. So I hope that this seminar actually helps you to actually realize on how to answer your paper 1 and paper 2 smoothly. Okay, thank you for watching the seminar. Okay, have a great day ahead.